Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic, debates, entertainment, when we give you guys a fresh perspective on things. And now we see them, and today we're going to be talking about these Brooklyn Nets. So put on your seatbelt. We got a show for you guys. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's talk about these Brooklyn Nets for a second here. The Brooklyn Nets have been mired in drama all season long, and 100% of it has to do with I blame almost all of it on that organization, because this is a chronic issue. It's not like as if it's something that just happened all of a sudden. Some people want to say, oh, it's Kyrie. It's not just Kyrie. It's the entire situation that they got going on in Brooklyn. So let's just quickly do let's quickly have a refresher on the situation, right? This offseason, after being blown out in the first round last year by the Boston Celtics, Kevin Durant goes to the team ownership, Joe Tsai and the general man, whatever. He says, I want to trade. These guys say, no, we're going to stand packed because you just signed a deal and blah, 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 blah. KD went back to them. He said, I'm serious. I want to trade. They're like, no. He's like, okay, if you guys don't want me to keep requesting for a trade, I'll give you guys an ultimatum. They're like, what's the ultimatum? The ultimatum is this. If you want me to stay, you need to get rid of the head coach and the general manager, Sean Marks. Joe Tsai and these guys said, absolutely not. We're not doing any of that. Get the hell out of my office. I'm the one running the show. Good. Season starts. They get off to what is the record that they started off with? Under Steve Nash, they ended up with a 2-5 record to start the season. They lost five of their first 7 games. Then all of a sudden, the Brooklyn Nets have an epiphany. And they're like, you know what? We're going to fire Steve Nash. They're like, okay, you fired him. You did what your superstar asked you to do to begin with. Took you a while, but you ended up firing him. No problem. Then what happened after that? They fire Steve Nash. Right after they fire him, we get word from other media outlets out there that they could potentially be hiring or looking to be hiring Ime Udoka. Adrian Wojnarowski, so many other sports media platforms reported on this, and all of us thought that Ime Udoka was going to be the Brooklyn Nets head coach. For what reason? The reason being for the job that he did with the Boston Celtics, specifically on changing the culture and turning them into one of the best defensive teams we've seen in the NBA in years. So all of us thought it was a no-brainer. Then we started hearing reports about their strong voices that are speaking to the Nets about not hiring Ime Udoka because of how it would look, especially considering the fact that they were in the Kyrie Irving situation. Then what happens? Some people out there said, yeah, it's going to look bad. It's going to look bad. I was one of the people that said, you guys are here talking nonsense. This thing about Ime Udoka, it may look bad for a month or two, but it's going to move on when you guys start winning games. They said, no, we're not going to do it. So what happens? The Nets then put out one of the most ridiculous press releases where they say that they decided to hire Jacques Vaughn, and Jacques Vaughn was the perfect candidate for the job. Meanwhile, he's been on that coaching staff for years. Think about this. He's the perfect guy for the job. After they fired Steve Nash, we were getting reports that they wanted to hire Ime Udoka, but he's the perfect guy for the job. No problem. So they hire him. Mike Wilbon and others came on TV. They're like, oh, you couldn't do it because of a PR miss. All of these different things. I said, what's worse? Them looking bad to the public about hiring Ime Udoka to a certain group of people, whoever the hell they are, or them continuing to lose games. Some people said, no, Ime Udoka, hiring him would be a bad decision. No problem. You didn't hire Ime Udoka. Where do the Nets currently find themselves as we speak? Under the leadership of Jacques Vaughn, they're 6-5, but there's a fundamental problem with the Brooklyn Nets if you take a closer look. Number one, if you look at the NBA standings right now, they're the number 10 seed in the Eastern Conference. They have an 8-10 record. Now, some people will say, yo, the season is early. You don't need to worry about this and this and this and this. No problem. I grant you this. However, there's another problem that seems to have remained regardless of the head coach. And that problem is the Brooklyn Nets defense. To give you guys a taste of what I'm talking about, just yesterday, they lost a game 115 to 106. If you look at the amount of points that the Brooklyn Nets are giving up to opponents this season, I want you guys to take a listen to this number. The Brooklyn Nets are giving up 112 points per game, 111.8 points per game. That's absolute madness. If you look at their defensive rating in the NBA, of the 30 teams, they are ranked number 22. The only teams worse than them are the New York Knicks, Detroit Pistons, Houston Rockets, San Antonio Spurs, and these guys, and the Golden State Warriors, who we're going to give time, and they may most likely figure it out given the performances that Klay Thompson and these guys have been having. So now the Nets are still losing. And then I woke up this morning just to see some reports that now we're hearing that they're still looking to trade Kyrie Irving. They're looking to move him. And the question is this: why didn't you hire Ime Udoka when you had the chance? Why? As I told you guys then, people that would complain about Ime Udoka being hired as a name, probably Malika Andrews, a few other people out there. But if the team starts winning and improves their defense, they will have a chance. People will forget about it. What happened last night? They lost in a game to the Philadelphia 76ers without James Harden and Joel Embiid. Do you know why? Because they couldn't stop anybody. By the end of the third quarter, it was like close in the 90s. I'm like, this team is not serious. And I think the Nets are going to regret not hiring this guy because he was a proven defensive mind. You saw what he was able to do with the Boston Celtics. He worked, it was an absolute tour de force if you compare it to the job Brad Stevens was doing over those years. Ime was able to accomplish that in 1 year, and what's going to end up happening? Ime Udoka is probably going to end up coaching it for another team and probably avoiding this Brooklyn Nets, cesspool of just mediocrity right now. The Brooklyn Nets are looking like the most confused franchise in the NBA. They're looking like the most confused one. And the only thing that will save this team is if they keep winning. But guess what? The same team that wants to avoid drama, if they end up trading Kyrie Irving this season, you better believe is going to create even more drama. And who are they going to trade him for? Who are they going to trade him for? I wouldn't even be surprised if Kevin Durant at some point this season says, you know what, guys, I still want to. KD, there's no good reason Kevin Durant should want to remain in Brooklyn. There's no good reason. He can win games for another organization. He can do that. But for the Nets, it's an absolute disaster. He needs to go to a team that actually has a culture from the top to the bottom. Go to Miami Heat. Go to the Golden State Warriors. Go to a team that actually has a culture. But what's happening in Brooklyn is an absolute joke. And I think they're going to regret the fact that they didn't hire a good coach and they decided to listen to other voices where they themselves had already made up them. The Brooklyn Nets were going to hire Ime Udoka, but they were influenced by outside voices. That's already a problem.